Pashmina, can you see the screen?
Jai Baba.
Yes, I can.
You want to read? You want to read? We just rotate the reading of the 7 realities. If you're comfortable, you can read.
Yeah.
Sure. So go ahead. From existence, yeah. 7 realities. We are reading the 7 realities.
Oh yeah, now I can read more clearly. Okay. Scroll. Can you scroll further? I can only read.
So this starts right here. So can you start from existence?
Okay, I have read up to 4, but you people carry on and I will follow it up with you guys. Don't get debate
so
for
let
me.
me just.
And Vaise Kama has already discussed with me 7 realities earlier, so I have some basic idea, right?
Okay.
No, just reading.
But we just read aloud. We just read aloud.
Yes, that would be nice.
Yeah. As a reminder every day. So I'm going to read today.
Okay.
So the 7 realities: existence, love, sacrifice, renunciation, knowledge, control, and surrender. I give no importance to creed, dogma, caste, or the performance of religious ceremonies and rites, but to the understanding of the following 7 realities. 1. The only real existence is that of the one and only God, who is the self in every finite self. 2. The only real love is the love for this infinity, which is God, which arouses an intense longing to see, know, and become one with its truth, God. 3. The only real sacrifice is that in which, in pursuance of this love, all things, body, mind, position, welfare, and even life itself are sacrificed. 4. The only real renunciation is that which abandons, even in the midst of worldly duties, all selfish thoughts and desires. 5. The only real knowledge is the knowledge that God is the inner dweller in good people and in so-called bad, in saint and in so-called sinner. This knowledge requires you to help all equally as circumstances demand, without expectation of reward. When compelled to take part in a dispute, to act without the slightest trace of enmity or hatred. To try to make others happy with brotherly or sisterly feeling for each one. And to harm no one in thought, word, or deed, not even those who harm you. 6. The only real control is the discipline of the senses to abstain from indulgence in low desires, which alone ensures absolute purity of character. 7. The only real surrender is that in which poise is undisturbed by any adverse circumstance, and the individual, amidst every kind of hardship, is resigned with perfect calm to the will of God. Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai. So we start the morning with quiz. Over to you, Ravi. Saturday is now the quiz day.
Yes. Desktop. All right. Today, the topic is the removal of Sanskaras, part 2, the dispersion and exhaustion of Sanskaras quiz. We finished this last week. I hope you all read it. And if not, we'll go through this learning. This is not really a quiz, learning emphasis, you can call it. What is the process one has to adopt to get established in the detachment and to negate all sanskaras. And the answer is freeing the soul from its self-imposed illusions like I am the body, I am the mind, or I am the desire, and gaining the ground toward the enlightened stage of I am God. Okay? This is what we always think, that I am the desire, I am the God, I am the mind, I am the body. When we say I am God, it's mostly theoretical. We don't have that experience. It's theoretical. So from I am the mind, I am the body, we have to journey towards the I am God. So we have to become like God, because grace is always there with us. It's up to us to open up to receive the grace. Next question.
Baba, there is another on page 278, Man God 2. I'll just read the paragraph. It says, what is spiritually disastrous for the soul still in bondage is not mere consciousness of creation, but the fact that consciousness is caught up in creation because of sanskaras. Thus, consciousness is covered with ignorance, and this prevents the realization of the divinity within. In the same way, what is also spiritually disastrous is not mere consciousness of the bodies, but identification with them due to sanskaras. These sanskaras prevent the realization of the infinite soul, which is the ultimate reality and the basis of all creation. In it alone is to be found the final meaning of the entire creation. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba. That's beautiful, Kama. Next question. What is the method of negating the positive sanskaras? The answer is control of body and mind. Page 49 of first paragraph. All right. Last week, I need to tell you a little story. I think I remember once I told you that I'm involved in an organization called North-South Foundation. What we do is we conduct contests for all the school children in this country. There are over 100 centers in America. And for each contest, we collect money, around $35, $20 to $35, depends upon the contest. And what are the contests? Spelling, vocabulary, math, different levels, essay writing, brain anatomy, public speaking, impromptu speaking, essay writing, science, all these things. So we collect all the money and send it to India for the talented poor students. Okay. So this year, we used to have public speaking, and how we used to run is we used to give a topic, and then we used to give them half an hour time, 30 minutes time to prepare, and they need to come towards the audience, towards the public, and there are judges. They need to give 3-minute talk. So this year, what they did was they changed it. Then they changed it to impromptu speaking. That is, they give the topic, they just have 60 seconds to prepare whatever they need to think about, collect the thoughts, and they need to give a talk. And the topic was easy. What is the difference you found in this last 1.5 years because of the COVID? That is the topic. And the students are 7th grade to 12th grade, different levels. And it was really interesting how these kids came up with the ideas and spoke. And then it occurred to me, why can't we apply the same thing to the discourses? So This born out of my experience of being a judge in one of the impromptu speaking. Okay, what is the philosophy of making public speaking to impromptu speaking was, who gives you half an hour time, right? In regular life, we go to a party, we go to classes, we go to different satsangs and all those things. Hey, what do you think is this? And then we need to be able to answer right away. That is impromptu. So if you have practice how to speak, how to say all those things, for these children, a lot of advantage. And for us being Baba lovers, we have our own advantages. Baba shows us these advantages. So I came up with this idea. Someone asked you in a party, what did your guru, Meher Baba, say about exercising control? What would you say in 3 to 5 minutes about control based on what Baba not learned, what we learned in Baba's discourses? Kama, this is a good question for you, Kama. Anybody? All right.
Well,
Yeah,
my answer would be, instead of using control, I will use the word awareness, because control means, again, action reaction. So instead of control, I would say that, what did your guru Meher Baba say about exercising control? Exercising control is based on self-awareness. Self-awareness comes from the fact that one has to understand the universal laws of nature, and based on that, one has to do intelligent action, which is unwinding sanskaras, not reacting to your sanskaras. Another thing that I have developed, which I am repeating again, if on a top-down approach, if divine love is the goal, and as in the chapter on love, Baba says, God is divine love. So if God is love, not Maya, and love is self-awareness, not control. Self-awareness is meditation every waking moment. And meditation is intelligent action, not unintelligent action. So that is how I would talk about control. Jai Baba.
I appreciate you giving your answer, but that's okay. We can debate about it later on. Baba did talk about control in the part 2 of the Sanskaras, what we are doing. In the first couple of paragraphs, the goal of every being is to realize the truth. Efforts need to be put to removing the positive as well as negative sanskaras in order to realize the truth self. All the methods based on the control of the body and the mind. This is not I'm making up. This is what in the discourses. And he extensively talked about control. Awareness is a different thing, but control is when the urge comes to our mind. Why does the urge come to the mind? Because of the sanskara. That is where we need to exercise control. If we don't have that brakes, we'll go on. A lot of people fall into big troubles because they don't have those brakes. That is where we have to exercise the control. The fleeting and evasive thoughts and desires of the mind can be curbed only with the great patience and persistence practice. The restraint of mental processes and reactions is necessary to check the formation of new sanskaras and to wear out or unwind the old sanskaras of which they are expressions. Though control might be difficult at the beginning, through sincere effort, it gradually becomes natural and easy to achieve. Control is deliberate and involves effort, as long as the mind is trying to decondition itself through the removal of sanskaras. But after the mind is released from the sanskaras, control becomes spontaneous because the mind is then functioning in freedom and understanding. Such control is born of strength of character and health of mind, and it invariably brings with it freedom from fear and immense peace and calmness. The mind, which appears feeble when it is wanton and uncontrolled in its functioning, becomes a source of great strength when it is controlled. Those are the few points I picked from the first two paragraphs of this chapter. Please read it again. It's very, very interesting. A lot of learning, because we need to exercise our control in our daily life at different points of time. When we get anger, we need to exercise control. When we have too much hunger, we have to control. When we want to have beers, we want to control with the 2 or 1, etc., etc. All right. What aspects do you use to remove tendencies for lust, greed, and anger? I mean, there's a general answer. I am picking from this chapter.
Love, generosity, patience, and tolerance. Convert lust into love, greed into generosity, anger into compassion or tolerance. Jai Baba.
Good answer, Skama. This is the actual answer. Page 50, second paragraph, last sentence. The tendencies for lust, greed, and anger are removed through an appreciative recognition of the value of life of purity, generosity, and kindness. Purity. Baba used the word purity for lust, and generosity, same as Kama used, and kindness for the anger. Why is it difficult to exercise control? What causes us not to be strong in exercising the strength? Why are we having trouble to use control? And the answer is, this is very important. We might have studied a few times, but I ignored it, and I was kind of, wow, this is the answer. The mind is used to certain habits, weaknesses, certain mindset, etc. This is my sentence, okay? Now, in order to change our habits towards new life, spiritual life, we need to change, and we get resistance from ourselves. The cause of this resistance is due to inertia in us. This inertia was caused by impressions of previous modes of thought and conduct. These are all my sentences, by the way. Sometimes I used my sentences, sometimes I used as it is. Sometimes I modified because of complexity of the sentences. This is in the page 50, last but one paragraph. Inertia is there. Tamas, right? In Sanskrit, they say tamas, the 3 qualities of the mind. Sattvic, Rajasic, and Tamasic. This is what we acquired in the previous ways of thinking and conduct. We always go for the shortcuts instead of the right process. Those kind of things will enhance our inertia. We have seen a number of cases where people die because of their addictions. Is it possible at all to come up with the creative control so that they can get out of their addiction habits? See, one thing about the question is it creates a a suspense in us, and that causes a curiosity in us, and we want to know. And since we are going out of sequence, it helps us to remember some of these values. It sticks to our mind. Yes, provided they try. Whoever it is, the creative control becomes possible because the source of light is within everyone. And though self-illumination is prevented by the veil of sanskaras, it is not all darkness even within the boundaries of ordinary human consciousness. It is there. Only thing is we have to bring it out. Next question. What is the process of replacing lower values by higher values called?
Sublimation.
That's right. Who answered that?
Jai Baba Ravi.
Sanjay ji.
Beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful, great. Yes, sublimation. How does this dispersion and exhaustion of sanskaras work? One of the ways of getting rid of samskaras is dispersion and exhaustion. And the answer is the process of sublimation consists in diverting the mental energy locked up in the old sanskaras. When this energy locked up in the sanskaras is thus diverted, they get dispersed and exhausted. What are the ways through which sublimation process can be achieved? Actually, these two questions go hand in hand, but I separated them. Does anybody remember? What are the ways the sublimation process works? Meditation is the one way. Selfless service for humanity. Devotion. Out of all these things, devotion is number one. Without devotion, we cannot spiritually evolve. That's what Baba calls love or divine love.
So you can call this as karma yoga, bhakti yoga, jnana yoga. That is, or hands, heart, and head. And I think we are all doing a permutation combination of all three. And as you said, love is the medium through which you do all three together. Whether you do karma yoga, bhakti yoga, jnana yoga. But Baba has said that pure love is the easiest and quickest way. But then pure love is the gift of the perfect master. So till we reach that state of grace, we need to do a permutation combination of all three, head, heart, and hands. Jai Baba.
Devotion is the only way, only way. We may go to a point through all different ways, but at one point, everything becomes one. And selfless service of humanity, we can call it karma yoga. Yes, as you said, devotion is bhakti yoga. Meditation, I think it comes as a Raja yoga, right? Raja yoga.
Yeah, you can look it as Raja Yoga. The Patanjali's sutras can be looked as Raja Yoga. And Jnana Yoga, of course, like the Ramana Maharishi or the Nisargadatta Maharaj aspect of who am I, you know. So I think as we said in practical mysticism, there are many different ways of approaching the same goal, because ultimately in the sixth plane, you are seeing God. So that is the only one samskara left between the subject and the object.
Because in Bhagavad Gita also, somewhere in 8th chapter also, there is a sloka. I read that many times, but when I read it again, it struck me. Only devotion is the way to reach God. That's the only way. All the other ways reach at point at a point, and then there is no difference between all these things. They all merge. I don't know what the point is. Once I reach, maybe I'll explain, but right now I don't know.
As Kamaji was saying, I think for underlying theme has to be love. Like you have to be devoted to do a selfless service, right? That's also in a way a devotion, devoted to a cause or devoted to doing meditation. So in that sense, that prevails everywhere actually. Jai Baba.
Right. Jai Baba. Through meditation, how are old and new sanskaras cleared? Is Sunilji present today?
No, he's not around. I just saw. No, he's not there.
He's not there. He was asking this question a few weeks ago, 2-3 months ago, when we had that topic. By doing meditation, is it possible to clear sanskaras? I was kind of little doubtful, not clear about that, but now in this chapter it is very clear. Anyway, through meditation, how are old and new sanskaras are cleared? And the answer is, meditation is a deep and constant concentration upon an ideal object. Ideal object. Old and new sanskaras are dispersed and exhausted through the mental activity of dwelling on the object of concentration. And Baba again comes about what is this object and all those things, but this is the answer for this.
Yeah, it's just a change of focus to the right thing. So your mind gets trained to continuously ponder upon the right rather than what is not ideal.
Right.
I'll not say wrong. Yeah, Jai Baba.
Jai Baba. What type of meditation is most fruitful? Lot of meditations are there, right? Watching the breath.
Meditating on the master or God.
Right, you're right, Sanjay.
Vipassana meditation.
Meditation on God is the most fruitful. Whatever meditation you do, whatever type of meditation you do, if the object of meditation is the God form, then that is the most fruitful. What is involved in meditation on personal aspects of God? There is impersonal aspect of God and personal aspect of God. The impersonal aspect is unmanifest form, concentrating on unmanifest form. But what is involved in personal aspect of God? Yeah.
I think personal aspects of God are love, mercy, kindness. That's the personal aspects of God.
Meditation on personal aspect of God consists in centering all thoughts upon the form and attributes of the God.
Attributes, yes.
Form, yeah. See, Baba is like this. Baba
completeness.
Baba yeah.
Completeness, all pervadedness. These are the attributes of God. Wholesomeness, loving.
Yeah.
And one who pardons you. All that's the attributes of God. The personal attributes. Yeah.
Attributes. If you look at
my
this,
understanding of.
Can I ask something?
Yeah,
I'll
just make a comment here. The personal form of meditation, as Baba has said in the types of meditation, is the easiest and quickest. Impersonal form of meditation is not for everyone. An impersonal form of meditation you come to the state of impersonal meditation only after going through personal meditation. Personal meditation, as you rightly said, it's focusing on the attributes of God, because the moment you wake up from sleep, you see the form and we have this body. So naturally and spontaneously, you're looking at the form of what is God. God is the perfect master or avatar. And both avatar and perfect master, when they are in human form, they exhibit certain exhibit certain qualities. And those are the qualities which we want to imbibe, because they are perfect. That is what you call perfection of a spiritually self-realized soul. So that is why focusing on the personal form of God, whether it is your guru, sadguru, any perfect master, or any avatar, especially avatar, it helps in that form of meditation. Now, impersonal form of meditation, as Pashmina just said, which is vipassana practice. And Buddha was very practical at that time. 2,500 years ago, here is an avatar who comes and does not talk about God. He talks about the self. And the vipassana meditation is non-denominational. It doesn't focus on any avatar. It focuses on your own self, because that is the impersonal form of God. OILS, our innermost loving self, is the formless self from which the form has come. So impersonal form of meditation is I wouldn't call it the highest, because devotion, bhakti yoga, is the highest form of devotion to God, or the easiest approach to self-realization. But impersonal form of meditation is something that, especially from the practical West, material West, is a very good, technique to actually look at. That is anapana, where you become aware of your breathing, because we are our breath. Because of breathing, this body exists, and this body holds the consciousness. And so impersonal form of meditation is for those people who can't relate to a personal form of God. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba. How does solitude help in spiritual progress? Solitude is being alone, not with anybody else, right? So how does it help in our spiritual progress? Solitude means economy of mental energy and increased power of concentration. You are drawn inward and learn the art of opening yourself to the higher currents, which have the potency of giving you strength, bliss, and peaceful expansiveness. That is the why it helps to progress spiritually. So Baba suggested that we should do this solitude every day for some time. But when we are doing the solitude, we have to focus on Baba, or God, whatever the form of God you are. Some pleasant spiritual thoughts.
Vipul had a question, right? Before
No,
Kama.
Kama answered it, so my question
Oh, okay, got it.
Sagun Nirgun. So
Yeah,
Kama
it is Sagun, basically.
so
Personal Sagun.
Thank you, Kama.
All right.
How does selfless service help in spiritual progress? The individual, while doing selfless service, is centering his attention and interest not upon his own good. See, this is the highlight of that. We have to be, because we are basically selfish. It invariably, our ego is so tricky, it goes to ourself. But here, not upon his own good, but upon the good of others. See, this is the crucial point here. The nucleus of the ego is deprived of its nourishing energy. See here, Baba used very interesting words. Interest not upon his own good, but upon good of others. The nucleus of the ego is deprived of its nourishing energy. Selfless service is therefore one of the best methods of diverting and sublimating the energy locked up in the binding sanskaras. What a beautiful answer Baba gave. So, all these years I have involved in the selfless service. One thing I have noticed, see, it's very difficult to notice what is your problems, right? We always think we are perfect, but it's very easy to observe when others are showing with contrast, good contrast. When you observe very easily. So when the people come to do service, oh my goodness, they have a lot of egos. They are showing the ego, saying, hey, I'm doing the service. Okay, don't come in my way. Let me do it. That sort of a thing. I used to be for 3 years organizing lunch at the temple Saturday and Sunday. And I used to request people, and they used to come, cook, and serve. And the people come, devotees come, we used to serve. And I have had very good experience of people coming and doing service for the God. Still they show that ego. I'm not blaming, but it's a learning process. It's a learning process how to do the devotional work, controlling our ego. That is the key point there. How should one perform selfless service to gain spiritual benefit? We just talked about it, right? Selfless service is accomplished when there is not the slightest thought of reward or result, and when there is complete disregard of one's own comfort or convenience or the possibility of being misunderstood. So when we do the selfless service, it's very important to think about others, their comfort, their needs. That is the most important than our own self-interest. Then only we get the spiritual benefit. What is it called when love is deep and intense?
Devotion.
Yep. It's called Bhakti or devotion. I should have put for God here. What are the characteristics of initial stages of devotion? Baba described in this chapter initial stages and advanced stages. So what are the characteristics of initial stages of devotion?
Yeah, constant remembership. Okay.
The worship of any
Symbol.
Yeah, symbol or vigraha radhana. Supplication before the deities. Here, supplication means, some of you know answer, but it's not a usual word. Asking something earnestly and sincerely. Supplication before the deities. Reverence and allegiance. What is allegiance to the scriptures? Allegiance means commitment or subordinate to a superior. I mean, accepting scriptures as acceptable things, I mean, why do we read discourses? It's all because of our love for Baba, because we have that trust, and because of that, we take every word with so much of importance. So these are the initial stages of pursuit of highest through abstract thinking. I'm thinking like assuming about the unmanifest form of God. And Baba is only a form, right, that we see, just like how we see our friends or parents or whoever. A person is a man, we can see. Whereas unmanifest form of God, it's not possible. But we think Baba is unmanifest form of God. That's why we love him. What are the characteristics of advanced stages of devotion? Devotion in its advanced states are interest in human welfare and the service of humanity, love and reverence for saints, and allegiance and obedience to the spiritual master. Love for a living perfect master is a unique stage of devotion, for it eventually gets transformed into para bhakti or divine love. See, divine love is para bhakti.
Can you can you just hold on here, please?
Sure.
Yeah, Ravi ji, this is mentioned here, living perfect master.
Yes.
No, I didn't
Yes.
understand living perfect master.
I think that's what it is written in the
living word.
The man who is living, who has attained the godhood, who is perfect master,
Not yet dropped his body.
Yeah.
Who has not yet dropped the body.
Yeah.
Who's currently
That's on the
one of the five perfect masters in creation.
Yeah. And Baba has said that this is an exception only to when the avataric age, what Baba calls it. And when the avatar comes after every 700 years, his manifestation is there, and then he is the one for 100 years. Yeah, 100 years he takes over. So I think Kamaji can better explain.
The effect
So
of
next living perfect master will be after nearly 700 years.
That's the avatar. Perfect masters would be there. 5 perfect masters will always be there.
I got the difference.
But the avatar takes the charge when he comes after every 700 years.
Yeah, I think Kama, please, if you can also explain.
Yeah, elaborate this.
Yeah, Jai Baba, I think that if you extrapolate this, what it also means is that Baba has mentioned that when the perfect master is alive in human form, then his presence helps the devotee who surrenders to the living perfect master in human form. He is benefited by his human form. As soon as the perfect master drops the body, his significance in terms of spiritual emancipation is no more. Only material emancipation aspects. That is why, for example, why do people go to Shirdi Sai Baba? Samadhi is not for spiritual emancipation. Why people are attracted there is that the perfect master Samadhi fulfills all your material objectives. So Baba has said that Avatar is the eternal perfect master or the supreme Sadguru. This is in the Discourses introduction. He's called the Supreme Sadguru, the Avatar, because the Avatar is available both in personal form when he is in human form, and when he has dropped his body, he is available to all and sundry forever. And as Sanjay ji mentioned, that Baba said for the first 100 years after he drops his body, his energies and presence is as intense as it was when he was in personal form. So we are all benefited between 1969 to 2069, where we have a direct connection with Baba as if he's still in human form, in terms of we can communicate with him. That's what I've been experiencing, that you give any doubt to Baba, and if you just follow the principle of IEIP, which is intense effort and infinite patience, Baba gives you all the answers, if you're patient about it. So in that respect, the living perfect master is important for spiritual emancipation. But as soon as the perfect master drops his body, then his effect on spiritual emancipation diminishes. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba. I hope Vipul, you got the answer.
Kama, can you repeat that short form you described now? Intense effort and
intense effort, infinite patience.
Infinite patience. Okay. We'll go to Trello.
Mamaji, put a book for all the Kama's acronyms.
So the five perfect masters. So the five perfect masters are not in the body form, as acknowledged by the avatar.
No, they are in the body form. Perfect masters will be there, but their functioning is taken over by avatar.
Okay.
See, even the circle members, when Avatar comes, there are 122 circle members. They have their own offices. But
Yeah.
but some of them, when I was talking to Bauji was saying that somebody asked him, "Are you a circle member?" And he said, "I don't know." And Baba said, "You are like a John to Christ. You are to me. You are like a John to me, just like how John was to Christ. John was one of the apostles, one of the circle members to Christ." But Bauji said, "I do not know if I'm circle or not. And all I'm doing is what Baba said. That's what I'm doing." So Baba was making sure all the mandali was very obedient to him, absolute obedience. Through that process, Baba used to get the work done through them in their own respective offices, just by being obedient to the avatar.
I think Vipul's question was, where are the current perfect masters? And what I have understood is during the Avataric age, they go into kind of, I don't know what word to use, but they are kind of not in the public domain or in a very limited domain. Is that understanding correct, Kamaji?
Yes.
They're always
Yeah.
there.
Actually, I like
I
what
believe
Kama
that-
says. Yeah, go ahead, Kama.
Sorry, I believe that only a living perfect master, whether during the avataric age or avataric period, whether a spiritual aspirant is able to have the blessing of a perfect master is still a grace, because the perfect master comes to the devotee. The normal public will not be able to recognize who is a perfect master, because the perfect master will have to give you the grace. Just like within the Baba community, there are many people who know about Meher Baba, but very few believe Baba is the avatar. So similarly, with the perfect masters also, between the 700 to 1400 years in any age, the 12 ages of 65 to 120 years, there will be 5 perfect masters in every age. That is still the grace of the perfect master. So we can never recognize who is a Sadguru. I can put a title Sadguru, just like Wall Street brokers put the name managing director, because they are basically salesmen. So that's how it is. Yeah, Baba.
To add to that, I think to respond to Vipul's specific question, I'll quote what Kama used to say, and correct me if I'm wrong, Kama. So the perfect masters in that avataric period are actually like just the board, to use the same Wall Street analogy. They are the directors, but they are not in charge because the chairman emeritus is still there, right? So the chairman is Baba and he is in control. Not that
Correct.
the perfect masters are not doing their job. They're doing their job, but then they are all doing their job as told by Baba in the avataric period. Post the 100 years, the 5 people actually are in full charge, right? So that's what I've taken away from the readings and Kama's board analogy. Board and
Actually,
chairman
what
emirate.
you said is, if you even look back before Baba became officially the avatar, which you would say there is a transition process from the time in 1913 when he was recognized by Asrat Baba Jan, the first perfect master. And then the final was Upasani Maharaj after he met Shirdi Sai Baba. But there was a transition state between 1915 to 1921 when Baba spent time with Upasani Maharaj. So before that, Shirdi Sai Baba was the head of the spiritual hierarchy. It's called Kutub Irshad or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But as soon as Shirdi Sai Baba dropped his body, you could say that we don't know whether Upasani Maharaj was the head or whether, because Baba officially was was considered avatar when Upasani Maharaj released him and told him that. So that is something speculative. But definitely,
interestingly,
where the age, every 60 to 120 years, that the 5 perfect masters are existent. One of the perfect masters is head of the whole hierarchy. He will be playing the chairman emeritus kind of role.
Yeah. And the Sai Baba dropped his body soon after Baba met him finally, when Baba declared. October 1916, yeah.
Correct. That was October 15, 1918. I think he met, I think Baba met Shirdi Sabha in 1915. So about 3 years transition
3 years
period.
later, yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, Baba, let's proceed. What do you know about Parabhakti? Parabhakti, just now I described as the divine love, perfect divine love. Parabhakti begins when bhakti ends. At this stage, devotion is not only single-minded, but is accompanied by extreme restlessness of the heart and a ceaseless longing to unite with the beloved. This is followed by lack of interest in one's own body and its care, isolation from one's own surroundings, an utter disregard for appearances or criticism, while the divine impulses of attraction to the more frequent than ever. This highest phase of love is most fruitful because it has as its object the one who is love incarnate and who can, as the supreme beloved, respond to the lover most completely. The purity, sweetness, and efficacy of the love that the lover receives from the master contributes to the insuperable spiritual value of this highest phase of love. Those are all the few points of Parabhakti that is described in this chapter. Avatar Meher Baba ki Jai. Thank you, Baba, for giving us this opportunity to learn what you described in the second part of the removal of sanskaras. Jai Baba. That finishes the quiz for today.
Jai Baba. Thank you,
Jai
Ravi.
Meher.
Thank you so much, Ravi. Beautiful quiz. So with that, again, I will remind everybody, and I hope you're all doing it. Please read so that when these questions are asked, you're able to relate, contribute, and answer. It's just a few of us answering every time, which is a pity. The objective of these quizzes and the effort taken by Ravi and team would be much more appreciated if all of us participate in the quiz. So on that note, I request all of you to continue to read and target those tests.
Sunil is here.
Okay.
Sunil, Jai Baba Sunil. Yeah, I formulated one question for Sunil. Remember, Sunil ji, you
Sanskaras
asked
and
me a
meditation.
question.
Sorry, which question, Raviji?
The question about whether we clear the old sanskaras and new sanskaras in meditation.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, we do.
We do. Okay, great.
It's very clearly answered in this second chapter of removal of sanskaras. Please read. You'll get the answer.
All right, I will. Thank you.
How is your father doing?
Yeah, he's stable right now, but it's the late stage of Alzheimer's, so it's one day good, one day not so good. So yesterday was a good day. He was praying. He kissed Baba's picture a few times. So I don't know how today will be. He's still sleeping, so
Okay.
one day at a time.
Yeah.
Jai Baba.
Jai Baba. Thank you.
Jai Baba.
Thanks so much.
we should offer our prayers to Sherry and family because they're all suffering with the COVID. The new virus, I happened to contact her and she's getting better now. But the whole family got, including her child, her husband, her mother, everybody got it. So let us do prayers and offer Baba to help Sherry and the family.
In fact, on that note, I want to also add Ramakrishna, my friend. His family is also completely affected by COVID. So his father is in very bad shape. So maybe we can do a combined prayer before we wrap up for today.
Yes.
Yeah, and
also, this guy, our friend Ashok Bhansali's mother had a fall in the bathroom in Delhi, and she's in the ICU or something. So that is why he's not able to attend. He spoke to me yesterday. He wanted all of us to pray for his mother. Jai Baba.
Yes.
I also had my youngest uncle, my Chachaji, he succumbed to COVID. They were in Lucknow. And my Chachi, his wife, is also on oxygen. His son is on oxygen, and they are in the hospital. So it's coming very close. Corona effect.
We'll offer prayers to all of them.
Yeah.
At the end. We'll just maintain 1 minute silence, remembering Baba. At the end.
Or we can do it now before we start reading. So let's just do it now that everybody's on. So requesting all of you to pray for a minute in silence and pray for all the souls that we know and all the entire rest of humanity to tide through this. Avatar Meher Baba ki jai.
Okay. Jai Baba.
Avatar Meher Baba ki jai.
Meher Baba ki jai.
Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.
So we'll start reading. It's the chapter on violence and non-violence, page number 67 on the physical book. Violence and non-violence, going beyond words. Man has a tendency to cling to catchwords and to allow his actions to be determined by them almost mechanically without bringing his actions into direct relation with the living perception that these words embody. Words have their own place and use in life. But if action is to be intelligent, it is imperative that the meaning these words are intended to convey should be carefully analyzed and fixed. Among the words that need such exploration, few are as important as violence and non-violence. They have a direct bearing upon the ideologies that shape not only particular actions, but also the entire tenor of life. Requesting a mic to be muted, I don't know who it is. Spiritual life, spiritual understanding goes beyond formulations. Spiritual life is a matter of perception and not of mechanical conformity to rules. even when these rules are meant to stand for the highest values. It implies an understanding that goes beyond all words or formulations. All words and formulations have a tendency to limit the truth. Therefore, those who seek to bring out the spirit underlying these formulations often have to launch upon a searching analysis of the formulated principles and to supplement this analysis by constantly retaining touch with concrete examples taken from life. This is particularly true of those guiding principles formulated through the opposite concepts of violence and non-violence. The words violence and non-violence are in ordinary references applicable to such diverse situations in practical life that no exposition of the issues involved can be complete unless it takes note of the diverse situations and uses them as a starting point. The section is representative situations. However, for the purpose of exposition, it is not necessary to exhaust numerically all the possible diversities that would be covered by these words. It is enough to consider some of the most representative situations. The representative situations mentioned below have been selected because of their capacity to shed abundant light on the fundamental values that center around the concepts of violence and non-violence. So there's a series of examples that we will go through. Situation number 1. Suppose a man, it's actually the case of a drowning man, that's situation number 1. Suppose a man who does not know how to swim has fallen into a lake and is drowning, and that there is another person nearby who is good at swimming and wants to save him. The drowning man has a tendency to grasp desperately at the person who comes to his aid, and the hold is often so restricting that it may not only make it impossible to save the drowning man, but may even cause the drowning of the one who came to help. The one who wishes to save the drowning man may therefore have to strike him unconscious before he can help him. Striking the drowning man under such circumstances cannot be looked upon either as violence or non-violence. I stop here. Any thoughts on the first few paragraphs and the first situation? Okay, so we'll continue and maybe stop when there are questions or comments. Situation number 2 is the case of surgery. Suppose a person is suffering from some disease that can only be cured through an operation. Thus, in order to cure this suffering patient as well as to protect others from catching this infection, a surgeon may have to remove the infected part. This cutting of the body with a knife also cannot be looked upon either as violence or non-violence. Situation number 3. It's a case of the aggressive nation. Suppose an aggressive nation invades a weaker nation for selfish purposes, and another nation, inspired solely by the noble desire of saving the weak nation, resists this aggressive invasion by armed force. Fighting in defense of the weak nation cannot be looked upon as either violence or non-violence, but can be called non-violent violence.
Yeah.
Situation number 4.
Hopefully, American forces action does not fall into this category. Typically,
I do not know. No
That's
comments.
with a purpose, actually. Yeah, Jai Baba.
No comments. Situation number 4 is the case of the mad dog. Suppose a mad dog has run amok and is likely to bite some school children, and the teachers in the school destroy the mad dog in order to protect the children. This destruction of the mad dog does imply violence, but there's no hatred in it. Situation number 5. case of non-violence of the strong. Suppose a physically strong man is insulted and spat upon by an arrogant man who is nevertheless weak. And suppose that strong man, who has the power to crush the arrogant man, not only desists from hurting him, but calmly explains to him the gospel of love. This action implies non-violence, but it is the non-violence of the strong. The next section is need for delicate considerations. So the first three situations mentioned above clearly bring out that the question whether a situation implies violence or non-violence cannot be decided except by entering into many subtle and delicate considerations regarding the diverse details of the situation and the motive that prompts action. The last two situations show that even where violence or non-violence is implied, certain other factors give meaning beyond the ordinary sense attached to these words, violence and non-violence. Comments on the case of the drowning man. A detailed analysis of situation number 1 shows that though it involves the use of force without prior consent of the victim, the motive was to save the drowning man. The application of force without the consent of the man on whom it is used may be termed a case of violence. But force is used for the good of the drowning man and not with any desire to inflict injury or harm on him. And in that sense, it may be said that it is not a case of violence. In these special senses, the situation can be said to involve violence and non-violence respectively, but in the ordinary sense of the words, it cannot be looked upon as a case of either violence or non-violence. Situation number 2 is slightly different. Here also, there is application of force, even to cutting the body, which is for the good of the patient. But in most cases, the patient gives his prior consent to the operation. Further, the operation is intended not only to protect the patient himself from the further ravages of the disease, but is also intended to protect others from the spread of infection. The application of force here springs out of the motive of doing unmixed good, both to the patient as well as many others who might come into contact with him. Since no harm is intended, the application of force does not amount to violence in the ordinary sense, nor can it be adequately looked upon as non-violence, since it is a clear case of cutting a part of the living body. Now we'll take the situation number 3, comments on the case of the aggressor nation. Situation number 3 is also very interesting and instructive. Here the fighting involves offering resistance to aggression with no selfish motive or personal interest, but solely with the purpose of defending the weaker nation. This may inflict much injury and even destruction upon the aggressor nation, and the use of force is not only without its prior consent, but against its deliberate and conscious will. Even in this situation, we do not have a clear case of violence. In spite of the injury and harm involved, the application of force is not only for the good of the weaker nation, which is the victim, but in a very important sense, it is also for the good of the aggressor nation itself. Because through the resistance encountered to its aggression, it is gradually cured of its spiritual weakness or disease of having a tendency to invade and exploit weaker nations. This violence is really not violent, and so it is called non-violent violence. Multiple important things coming out here. One is obviously the aspect of consent in both situation number 2 and situation number 3. But what was intriguing here is Baba makes a reference to the spiritual weakness of the nation itself. So, right, so because through, if you look at this line, because through the resistance encountered to its aggression, it is gradually cured of its spiritual weakness. And here, the it is the nation. So that's an interesting aspect that has come out in this para. Any other thoughts? Okay, but I think largely, yeah, go ahead.
In all the examples, there is a sort of a valuation for the act, which is either violence or non-violence in the general understanding. So this valuation differs as per the situations. That is what we need to understand from these examples given, I think.
Perfect. If you go back to the first two paragraphs of this chapter, that's how he set the stage. He set the stage by saying that words don't do justice, words cannot carry the exact import in every context, and context drives everything. And that's how he goes on to explain these examples. Agreed.
Can I ask something?
Yeah,
there is a word used,
sure.
Consent.
Yeah.
Twice.
Yeah.
Whose consent it is?
So in the first case, it was the consent of the patient, because if I'm offering myself to a surgery which involves a portion of my organ being taken out, obviously I would have provided the consent. And in the second case, he refers to consent. Without consent, the aggressor being attacked by the stronger nation. So you don't take consent in a war, right? So you just go and save that small country. So that's the two references to consent. Anybody else?
Yeah,
my suggestion is that you should read both the chapters, because I have noticed that both the part 1 and part 2, violence and non-violence, further explained, they are interconnected. So if you can read this chapter too, then you can actually interrelate both the chapters with examples.
Okay, Jai Baba.
Great. Thank you, Kama. So with that, let's continue. Comparison between aggressor nation and the surgery. So this is contrasted here. The case of fighting with an aggressor nation is very similar to the case of surgery on an infected part of the body. In the case of fighting with the aggressor nation, the good of the weaker nation appears to be the primary result, and the good of the aggressor nation, against which force is exercised, appears to be a secondary result. In the case of the operation, the good of the patient on whom force is exerted appears to be the primary result, and the good of others appear to be a secondary result. But this is only a minor difference in benefit, and when the two situations are carefully analyzed and compared, it is found that both promote equally the good of the target of force, as well as many others involved in the situation. Defending weak, a form of selfless service. Defending the weak is an important form of selfless service, and it is a part of Karma Yoga, or the yoga of action. Use of force, when necessary for this purpose, is completely justified as an indispensable instrument for securing the desired objective. But any fighting undertaken to defend the weak must be without any selfish motives or hatred if it is to have unalloyed spiritual importance. It resembles, for example, a case of a man who defends a woman being attacked by another man for vile purposes, thus saving the woman's honor and life and punishing the attacker and making him repent. Comments on the cases of the mad dog and non-violence of the strong. Situation number 4 is definitely a case of violence. However, it is justified because there is no hatred in it, and because it is intended to promote the greater good of the children who might be attacked by the mad dog. The case of the strong man who gives a sermon instead of seeking revenge, situation number 5, implies non-violence, but it is not a case of inaction. It implies neither passivity nor weakness, but strength and true creative action of an impersonal nature. It is non-violence of the strong. To spiritual understanding, above rules and requires divine love. The detailed analysis and comparison of the above diverse situations bring out the fact that questions concerning violence and non-violence, their justification or otherwise, and the ascertainment of their true value or lack of value cannot be decided by any formal enunciation of an universal rule. They involve many delicate spiritual issues and implications. A right understanding of the status of violence and non-violence in the scheme of spiritual values requires a true perception of the meaning of the purpose of existence. Action, therefore, should not be governed by means of any slogans, however high sounding, but be based upon complete and insufficient ideas of mere violence or mere non-violence. I insert the but wrongly. Let me read that line again. Action, therefore, should not be governed by means of any slogans, however high sounding, based upon incomplete and insufficient ideas of mere violence or mere non-violence. It should be a spontaneous outcome of divine love, which is above duality, and of spiritual understanding, which is above rules. Okay, so I think going by Kama's input, this is a small chapter, so let's try to read the second following chapter and then get into a discussion. If there's any questions quickly, we can take them now. Otherwise, I'll go to the part 2 of this, violence and non-violence, further explained.
The last sentence needs a lot of understanding, I think. It should be a spontaneous outcome of divine love, which is above duality, and of spiritual understanding, which is above rules. So divine love is above duality, spiritual understanding is above rules. So how do we take the message? We have to think on these lines. Okay.
So I think the message is on interpreting contextually the situations of violence and non-violence and classifying them. We need to apply the two things, that is, use spiritual understanding and use divine love is what I'm understanding. But of course, it's a point of deeper reflection, like you rightly said.
Yes.
Baba, yeah, I think what Doc Mama said is correct, and what Karthik said, that it's basically these two chapters are about. Next chapter, you will see the classification of violence and non-violence. Just like when we read about Sanskaras, you know, how we can disperse of Sanskaras, there were 5 or 6 different aspects to it. Similarly, violence and non-violence will be looked upon in different aspects, you know, different context. So when we talk about spiritual understanding, you know, real spiritual understanding happens only when you become self-realized. Till then, you are on the guidance of a perfect master. And I think when it talks about above rules, I think probably it means above man-made rules, you know, because there is always the majority and minority, you know. So that is why spiritual understanding is above man-made rules. This is how I look at it. And of course, it should be a spontaneous outcome of divine love, because only divine love can be exhibited by self-realized beings. And we know that the whole self-realization process is a game of duality, get over duality. So that is what it means, which is about duality. Jai Baba.
And I think in the whole essay, I also noticed how intelligent action is referred to in situation number 5, which is the non-violence of the strong, right? So that's also something to be kept in mind. That's an interesting aspect.
Jai Baba. You know, this Khaled, yeah. This chapter on violence and non-violence, if I were to sum it up in 2 words, non-hatred action. Would I be correct if I sum it up in 2 words as non-hatred action?
Yes.
Can anybody say?
Yeah, I think that, see, we are again under the influence of words. And here we are using the English language, which is very ambiguous. So as Karthik pointed out, first we have to look at the context. And that is what this chapter is all about. Violence and non-violence is a very beautiful chapter. How to understand context, contextual situations, and accordingly use intelligent action to do the right kind of, response, not reaction. So when you say the word hatred, yes, absolutely. When you're defending somebody, it is not about hatred. Self-defense is not a form of hatred. If somebody is coming to physically fight you for no reason, you either run away like a martial arts, guidance, or if you have to defend yourself, it is not a form of hatred. Jai Baba.
In fact, on that note, I agree with Khalid broadly, but then if you look at this para, that's where it hit me. It says, however, it is justified. So situation number 4 is talking about. So situation number 4 is definitely a case of violence. However, it is justified because there's no hatred in it. Okay. So is there an implication here that in the case of the aggressor nation, as well as the other 2 cases, is there an element of hatred, or we assume there's no hatred in all the 5? Because when the
defending nation or the protecting nation has no hatred against the aggressor nation. Its only intention is to protect the weaker nation. So I would interpret it as that there is no hatred there. Maybe because of the action, some hatred may come in.
Yeah,
that's what I'm struggling with. Yeah,
the support. But as long as we exercise, we have that hatred sanskaras, even though we are supporting some good nation, weak nation, we show that hatred towards that other nation, right? So that is showing up our own violent sanskaras. I mean, hatred sanskaras.
Yeah. I think the good examples from Ramayana is the killing of Bali or killing of Ravana. That did not involve the hatred.
Yeah. As an exercise, can we put up for each to come up with examples, for the learning of others, some non-hatred actions. I think there will be lots in many mythology. If we come up, we'll be able to grasp this a little more finer. Jai Baba.
Correct. Something to do with personal life examples, actually, or something that you read, an analogy. And also one more thing I want to comment here is that in physics, there is this interference theory that is called constructive interference and destructive interference, where, 2 waves, when the amplitude are in harmony, the amplitude, goes up. The 2 crests of a wave together becomes a constructive interference, whereas the crest and the nave, neutralizes. So in real life, when you look at the American war, like the Vietnam War, was a destructive interference, coming into Vietnam, the communist aspect. But when America interfered with Kuwait being, attacked by Iraq, okay, that was a form of constructive interference, So, countries being attacked and then, everybody gets together. So that was a form of constructive interference. But a destructive interference was the Vietnam War and even the war in Afghanistan, they went and attacked Iraq after the World Trade Center, Iraq had nothing to do with it. But this was, again, the American, what I call as the military industrial complex working over time. Basically, America is controlled by multinational corporations, who use lobbyists to drive their agenda. So that is a form of destructive interference that America did even after the World Trade Center tragedy. They didn't go after the wrong guys. So, Jai Baba.
This all the stories reminds me of this story. This general kills 99 people, and then he goes to this perfect master for repentance. And then the perfect master says, do everything what I say and you'll be fine. And the perfect master says, go and stand near that so-and-so highway. Whoever comes first thing in the morning, kill him. And then this guy goes and stands there, and the first person, he's coming on a horse, and then he kills him. he didn't kill him as a how he was killing before, but he was killing as a duty, as a what the perfect master told him to do, as an obedient task that he was given. And because of that, this fellow is going to go and kill 100 people, and that's how he rescues 100 people, villagers there. That's how he gets nullified with his sanskaras by obeying the duty of what perfect master told him. I mean, that's a violence, but he did it as a duty. So that makes a whole difference, you know.
Actually, if I heard the story right, I think the story is not about the perfect master telling him to kill the first guy. I think the perfect master told him to stay in one place and concentrate on him.
Yes.
And the horseman comes and tells him to get out of the way, and there is a fight. There's a dispute. And because of his past conditioning, he kills the horseman and immediately gets spiritual emancipation, liberation, because the perfect master knows exactly the sanskaras of this particular killer. And so he just had to surrender to his to the wishes of the teacher. And the horseman was going to another kingdom to pass on the message to execute 100 prisoners. And by saving those 100 prisoners, he was able to equate out, that sanskaric balancing that only a perfect master can do. So I think that is again an example that you can't just do bad and neutralize it with doing good by putting 1 crore in Tirupati or something, which is what all these people do, and think that the sanskaras will go away. That's not possible. Jai Baba.
What about the people who execute? Is that a sin or it's their duty?
Depends upon how he does the job.
No, I mean it's like they'll put them on an electric chair or whatever.
Turning on the switch so also. Depends upon with what attitude he is doing his duty. Is he doing the duty with vengeance, or is he doing duty as a matter of duty? He's doing it. That makes a big difference whether he goes to hell or heaven.
So it's basically the intent defines the content of your life.
Volition of mind. At that point of time, what is the volition? What you're thinking and why you're doing it. That is what matters.
See, in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, right? You have when you are a soldier, your job is to do the killing. Whether with what attitude you kill your enemy makes a big difference. Whether you will go to heaven or hell.
Thank you.
In this context, with all the examples given, it's a very difficult thing to visualize and spiritually put a stamp on correct or incorrect action. Say, there are different beliefs, there are different religions, there are different nations, different sets of people, different types of valuations each does. And so a nation which is trying to hit at a small nation and you try to defend that small nation, you become an aggressor against that primary aggressor. So at that point of time, there are 3 or 4 nations and there are so many other nations and other viewpoints which are all coming into clash. Each one thinks in a different way. So who decides which is the correct thing? How to take a spiritual evaluation there? It's all a big mess. It's not so easy as...
Mamaji, it's not really a big mess, Mamaji. The world appears to be a mess, but it all depends on coming back to individual, you or I, how you take it or how I take it. The best process is to remember Baba and look for his direction, and he will guide you in different situations. I have had a number of experiences.
That is correct. Okay, Ravi, at an individual level, when there is a clash between 2 nations, how as an individual I take it as a spiritual evaluation of that? That is a difficult issue. That is very, very difficult.
Yeah, but these are all examples Baba gave for us to learn something, right? It comes back to your own battle that you will face in daily life. How are we going to face that battle? That is the question it comes down to. I mean,
yes, as we see in the scriptures also, so the Mahabharata war was justified, no? So at one level, you can even say it is not justified. So that way, it is very difficult to decide on sort of a community activity to make a spiritual evaluation on a community activity. It's very, very difficult. I feel like that. It's very difficult for me also.
No, so I think that's if I may add, I the one thing that I took away in this read of this chapter is this gives you the greater clarity for what Baba defines between good and evil and this true values and false values, right? So here we understand that there is nothing in the classification as normal mortals do, that this is good and this is bad, and this is the explanation for that, right? So in that sense, our minds are conditioned to look for classifying everything that we see, and that's the first thing we should curb. We need not classify, because context drives everything, and context could actually mean the spiritual context of that determines that action, and all we need to focus is on individual progress, individual spiritual progress, and as Kama said, focus on intelligent action. That's what I'm taking away from this. Nomita, you're saying something.
Yeah, it all depends upon the sanskaras, you know. If we have to be in the war, we will be in the war.
Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.
So I think spirituality is not a collective action. It's an individual journey and action. So if it is so it basically boils down to the intent in you in any given action, and that decides whether it's good or bad. I also can't understand, if I'm a soldier, I'm fighting for my country, I'm killing this person, is it a bad thing or a good thing? I mean, you can't be peaceful and kill somebody. You will be in an aggressive mood when you apply force on someone else. So who decides whether it was a good action or a bad action? Is that you get a brownie point, or
no, you decide. Yeah, ma'am, you decide, because if you decided to take a career as a professional soldier, then this is a part of your duty to do. So it's a decision that you took, and killing will be part of it. But there is something called good fight and bad fight. So when you fight a good fight, that's a good fight. And of course, anything, volition of mind is always the most important. Why you do or what you do.
I see. Yeah, I get it.
In the military action context, what Kamaji gave an example as the protector of Kuwait that US did. But sometimes the forces are put into actions which are not rightful, you know. But as a soldier, it's your duty, as Krishnaji just said, that you just follow. So your heart is not there in the action that you are doing actually, but you just follow the dictate and do it. So that's the puzzling part actually.
Yeah, but
because
you can't
I'm doing wrong, but so
you can't kill anyone if you're not aggressive. How to kill anyone like that? So at that point, while you are doing that action, I think there'll be some kind of anger or then let Baba decide. None of us are soldiers anyway.
Okay.
You know, long time ago when I was in Rochester, when I was doing my fellowship, I was sharing a room with another, I think his name was David. He was making big money in Minneapolis, one of these Honeywell. what they were doing is they were making all these military stuff, how to kill other people, all these things. He was designing and all those things. He gave up the job and took up a fellowship at Mayo Clinic and working on the heart. And I asked him, why did you give up such a good job and why are you coming up and doing this fellowship? He said he didn't like that the intention of his design that is going to be used to kill people. And he wants to use his energies to help people. That's why he gave up. So it all comes to your choice, I think, what kind of a job we are doing.
Praise you. And Jai Baba. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, we are out of time. So we'll pick up on the second part of violence, non-violence next week. But I think let's do the assignment, the interesting assignment Khalid has given. Why can't each one of us come up with at least one scenario which, based on context, we are able to classify as violence and non-violence? And I'd request everybody to come up at least with one, right? So you can get inspiration from the situations that are described, the 5 situations. And you can also pick up, as Khalid suggested, examples from mythology or even history, like Kuwait invasion, whatever, right? But then please reflect and come back. We'll go around the table. We'll go to each person. Each person has to provide one example, situation, and then we will discuss all aspects. Presence or absence of hatred, presence or absence of consent, and the classification at the end, whether it is violence, non-violence, and what we learn from that. Yeah.
Good idea.
Yeah.
Hey,
all married people will have many examples to share.
That's what I was going to say. Why do you need to be a soldier? Talk about my anger issues, man.
Not your anger issues. That all of us are in marriages and we are almost about to commit murder and we don't.
Good idea. Good idea. Talk about your husband and wife.
Yeah. There'll be plenty of examples.
Absolutely.
Hey, Karthik, next week I'm not going to be in town. So
those examples, Namitaji, we can use for mind control and self-control.
They work, sometimes they work, sometimes they don't.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, Ravi, you were saying something. So you're not available. Yeah.
I'm off.
Yeah, Raviji was saying something.
Leave letter. Next week's leave letter I'm applying now. If anybody else is going? I'm going to Houston.
Take us with you.
Sure, come on over. It's going to be a party. party in Houston. So.
Oh, nice. Okay. So we'll fill up on the quiz. I will find somebody, but obviously before the quiz is the assignment that we discuss on violence and non-violence on Saturday, right? So catch up with the videos and have a good trip.
So tomorrow there is, right? Tomorrow there is one. Tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow there is. Yes, of course. All right.
Jai Baba.
Avatar Meher Baba.
Jai Baba ki jai. Jai Baba. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.
Jai Baba. I may not be available tomorrow, probably.
Tomorrow, same time? Tomorrow will be same time?
Yes, same time. Same time.
Same channel.
Yes.
Oh,
same
yes.
channel. Yeah.
Same time, same channel.
Yes, same time, same channel. Yeah. All right. Bye-bye.
Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.